Welcome to Lickin' on Lending, the podcast that dives deep into the heart of the mortgage industry. Your host, David Lickin, bringing you the latest insights, trends, and updates from the world of mortgages. Whether you're a seasoned industry veteran or just getting started, this show is your go-to source for all things mortgage. Let's get started. This is Lickin' on Lending. Now your host, David Lickin.
Listeners, I always say this, but we're in for another really big treat. We have Cindy Ertman joining us today. Cindy is just one of those people that when she enters the room, she just fills the room up. She's bigger than life. She's got a smile that just turns on lights everywhere. Everyone lights up when they see Cindy because she's just that kind of person, inviting type personality. We're going to be talking today about building practical systems that drive results without being overwhelmed. I got to tell you, I love systems, and I'm a systems guy, but I don't always like to follow them. I like setting them up, but I don't like to follow them. That's why I have Ben and Cherry who help me on my systems. But we're going to find out the secrets, what's working. Cindy is the CEO of the Defining Difference. I love that because each of us have a defining difference, and we're going to interested in getting insights into Cindy's defining difference and how she helps you find your defining difference. So, Cindy, welcome to the podcast.
Oh my gosh, I'm so happy to be here, David. Thank you so much for having me. This is going to be fun.
Big shout out to Michelle Berman who put us together too. And I've known of you for a long, long time, but Michelle said, Dave, you got to have Cindy on your podcast. And I said, I would love to. I love her coaching. I love what you do. Give us a little bit of your background. You've been named 5-time recipient of the Mortgage Executive Magazine's top 100 most influential executives. You've got lots of creds here. Why don't you tell your story a little bit and give our listeners some insights?
Well, look, as most of us, we end up in the mortgage industry by accident, right? I mean, that's really pretty much everybody's story. And I think early on, very early in my career, one of my mentors said to me, look, nobody's going to make you great. You have to want to be great. And, sometimes you hear those right words at the right time. Yes. And for some reason, that really resonated with me. And I just made a decision. I remember being on the 405 freeway in LA. I live in Manhattan Beach, California. And I remember just thinking, I'm going to set my intention that I'm going to be one of the best mortgage originators in America. And I'm going to do whatever it takes to be great. And I just set on that path. I just wanted to get better every single day. And I started following top producers. Really didn't have any female mentors at that time. There weren't that many females that were killing it in the mortgage industry. And so I just sat down on this path that I was going to figure out what the top people were doing, and I didn't have to reinvent success, and ultimately ended up building $1 billion branch with my partner. And, my highlight year in terms of my personal production was over 200 million.
Wow.
Probably funded nearly 3 billion in loans over the course of my career. And, my partner and I built our region from 1 to 20 branches. And so, I've kind of hit almost all areas of mortgage except the secondary market. Yeah. And I just, I really believe wholeheartedly that to build a successful business, you do have to have replicatable systems. And
yes, yeah.
So I just, it got to a place in my career where I was spending so much time coaching, teaching, training others. I was on national stages. I was on the faculty of Loan Toolbox for 17 years.
That's
coaching,
right.
Teaching, and training there.
Well, I think I first met you, ever heard of you, was on Loan Toolbox.
Probably so. And then I just finally, that little voice inside my head is like, if I don't do this now, I think I'll live with that regret. And I try to live with no regrets. So 13 years ago, I launched my coaching and training company, and I built it, and fortunately they came. So here we are.
Well, yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the name, the Defining Difference. Where did you come up with it? What's the origin of that?
Well, that name was not selected by me. That name was seriously selected by a higher power. I have no idea. I was in the shower one morning, and I'm not kidding. This was 10 years before I launched my company. I had no idea why that name was given to me, downloaded to me. I remember getting out of the shower, writing it down, and I was given instruction to trademark the name, and I had no idea why. And of course, you can't trademark a name till it's in use. So I had to kind of figure out what that was going to be. I started writing a mortgage book, actually, and I knew that wasn't the path. And when I decided to launch my coaching and training company, it just all sort of came together. And then I spent a lot of time, this may sound silly to some, but I did a deep dive on asking myself the question, what is the defining difference, really? Like, what is it in our life? And I've been given this name, the defining difference, and I want to help people create a defining difference in their life and their business. But what really is it? And one day I had this epiphany that the defining difference is a choice. It's an intentional choice. And if we don't like the way our life or our business is going today, we have the ability to wake up tomorrow and make new choices. So the whole crux of my company is helping people make new and intentional choices to elevate their business and their life.
Yeah. I can't remember which it was, what the Jewish individual that was, I think Franco's, I think his last name, was in a Jewish internment in Auschwitz or something. They killed his parents, killed his wife, killed everything that was important to him. And they had him standing in front naked in front of a blaring light, and they're grilling him. And he had an epiphany at that moment. He says, they've stolen everything dear to me and every physical possession. But the one thing I will not let them steal is my attitude, my outlook, and I'm not going to let them steal my joy. And so he found a way to find hope and joy. It's legendary. He lived to an old man. He inspired many, many people through that period, and so survived that. And so anyway, it's one of those stories. But so I think it's really good to have a defining difference. But one of the things that's a real hallmark of yours is systems, helping people set up systems. And so many people get overwhelmed and even shut down at that because, I don't know about you, even I appreciate systems. I just don't have sometimes the self-discipline to always want to follow them. I've learned to surround myself with people that do to make sure that I am following the systems. My fiance is helping me. She is really good at that. And I think that's one of the reasons I was attracted to her, because she is really, really good at executing, not necessarily coming up with a system, but helping me execute. So I want to hear about your systems, and then how do you help people follow their systems and get them set up and then hold them accountable?
Well, it's interesting because I don't even think I realized till I launched my coaching and training company how many systems I'd actually created as an originator, until I started teaching it, because I started paying attention that if it was anything that was going to be replicatable, that I was doing over and over again, I'm like, I have to create a system for this. And when I started coaching, I became so aware that people had no systems for anything. And it's funny because I almost hate the word. Because the minute you mention the word systems, it's like looking at your tax return. People's eyes glaze over. They don't even want to talk about it. They don't even know what I'm talking about when we're talking about a system. And so many people just try to avoid it. One of the things that I love about leading my Mortgage Mastermind Elite group is it's a group of high-level professionals, and then one or two start adopting it and start building out their systems, and then they start to see these people's business take off and become much more, because it levels out your business. So you're not, doing this every month up and down.
Right.
But so I started just creating systems for anything that I knew I needed to streamline, and it saves you so much time in the long run. And so, just a few of the systems that I set up was, like a follow-up plan when you go to meet with a realtor, because I was building my career. And I did a national webinar this last year on creating a realtor follow-up plan, because I was talking to very successful originators that were telling me they'd go meet with a new realtor or a high-producing team. And one of my clients, very high-end guy in Florida, one of my clients said to me in our coaching session, that meeting was 2 weeks ago and I'd done nothing to follow up. And so they're losing opportunities because they're not building the relationship because they have no system for follow-up. So like to your point, it doesn't mean that you're the one that has to execute the whole system, but mapping it out and then figuring out who are going to be the people that are going to execute. If you have a loan officer assistant that's going to help you, if you have a marketing assistant, or if it's you initially.
Or even new technology. I was interviewing Dan Kiltnelly. In fact, I'm going to be interviewing it. He's with Total Expert. They've got a system now where they're using AI-generated voice, interactive voice. And it is so powerful and one of the statistics he's came out with is it takes 7 follow-ups in order to reach a consumer to get an interaction. Most people quit after 2 And if they get to 3, it's a miracle, but it's taking 7. So it's having those kind of things that just constantly replicate and do that. And that's what I love about, not only do you talk about the number of times, but you talk about a system. One of the ones that I really like is a marketing calendar. Talk about the marketing calendar, because that is one that I think the sales versus marketing, if you kind of delineate it in your mind, what those two are and what's the importance of a marketing calendar.
I still remember the year I came up with the idea, and I had a production partner, and we would, if you're left to your own devices on marketing, everybody knows that marketing is a necessary part to be able to reach a greater audience. Yeah. And so obviously there's so many different components to marketing, and I did a lot of marketing, but
it's a top of the sales funnel type activity. 100%.
And so one day I called my partner and I said, look, I want to have a marketing meeting, but what I want to do this time, instead of just willy-nilly it throughout the year, I want to sit down and I want to build out a plan, because I had realized systems were a lot of the reason for my success. And so we sat down, and at that point, it was just a Word doc. And I just put January, February, March, April, May, and I just typed up every month. And I sat there and we started plugging in what we were going to do throughout the year. And I had a couple of things that I did 100% of the time. Consistency is key to all of this. So one of the things that I did, and I'm passionate about this today, I talk so much about database management, but I was religious with database management for
data. That's the key.
And on the 1st and the 15th of every month, I wrote an email to my past client database and to my realtor partners. And I was able to send that out directly. Many companies today, you can't do that, but you can send it to your marketing department to make sure it's compliant and have them send it out. And I highly recommend it. But that was a system that I did. And whether I got info from Barry Habib or I followed 6 or 7 publications and I would pull updates on the market, I kept my clients updated. So I was in front of them consistently. We did lunch and learns for many years, monthly. And then I just, as my business exploded, I went to quarterly. But like, we would map those out a year in advance. So we would pick our dates. So if it was March, let's say it was March 15th. Then on the marketing calendar, I would back it up 4 weeks, and I'd be like, I'd save the date on February 15th. So that would go into my February calendar. And then in January 15th, we always did it 2 months ahead. We would pick our title, spend a lot of time on Titles Day, because I really believe that
that's the attention getter. Why is that? Yeah, talk about that why that title is so critical.
Well, 2 things. I always say you got to have a sexy title, because you got to get people to show up.
Yeah. And
that's the key. And the title has to depict exactly what it is they're teaching, so they have some clue what they're actually attending. So I spent, and this was before AI and chat, right? So I would spend hours sometimes coming up with a really great title, because you want people to feel like they can't miss this. This is something exciting to attend. So, but we would come up with the title and the content 2 months ahead. We would send out our save the date a month ahead. And then we had a whole system for how we were going to get people into the room, because look, I coach a lot of high performers, and the number one reason they don't do events is because they're scared that nobody will come.
Yep.
And so we had systems around how to get people into the room. So that would go into the calendar. And then 3 days before, we would do a phone campaign. My production partner and I would split the list. We'd call our 30 people, and, always, we ended up doing a pretty good job of getting anywhere from 12 to 30 people to show up to our lunch and learns. And we did them live and in person. I mean, I started doing more towards the end, a little bit more online. We would do online first-time homebuyer seminars, which were great. But again, it was all built into the calendar. I still, right up until the end of my production, which was 10 years ago, I was still sending out hard mail postcards every quarter. And my partner would always laugh, and she would say, that's so old school. I said, it's completely old school, but it works. I got business almost 100% of the time, because I put a lot of thought and time into that postcard. But same thing, that postcard had to be, I didn't have my marketing department design it, because I wanted it to be a specific message. I would send them the message. They would put it together. They would run it through compliance. We'd go to print. I got business 100% of the time, because people would hang on to it, because they'd forget to call me. And they say, thank you so much for sending this, because it reminded me that I wanted to talk to you. So, and then now we have social media. And so plugging in your social media calendar. I'm redoing mine right now. I had a marketing meeting yesterday with my team from my coaching company. And again, we build out a system for how we're going to deliver our social media content. What is our Monday content going to look like? We have themes around, thought leadership and mortgage tips, and then personal stories, because people want to know.
They want those
really
personal
are.
stories are so important. They really connect.
So again, having systems around it. So plugging in how often, what platforms, how you're going to create the content. We have film days, where I set aside 2 hours or 3 hours to film content, and we batch content because that's much more efficient for my time. So again, coming up with anything systematized for marketing, and it makes it so then you're looking at a plan. And now you know exactly what you're going to do. And then I would give it to my assistant and she would plug it all into the calendar. So whether you're using a database management system as your trigger,
there's one thing I want to stop on right there, Cindy, because you didn't plug it into your calendar. Your assistant did. You came up with the plan, and then some of the tedious stuff that people get bogged down in and get stuck in is not having an assistant. I've got 2 of them, and I've had as many as 5 at different times in my career when I'm going blowing and going strong, trying to slow it down a little bit now. But what happens is that it's so important to have someone do the things that you're not good at or that you find distracting or where you get stuck. I want to emphasize that you saw the importance of having an assistant, and you really use and work well with your assistants. This is a little bit of rabbit trail, but how do you select an assistant? How do you find someone that's going to work well with you?
Well, it's interesting because I remember being in a place in my mortgage career where I thought I needed a second loan officer assistant. I was just drowning. And I was about ready to place an ad for an LOA when I decided to actually do what I teach. So I tracked my time for 2 days on a normal business day, and I tracked it in 15-minute increments. Teach this, and it changes people's lives. So I tracked every single thing from the time I got up in the morning to the time I went to bed. How was I spending my time? And it's really enlightening when you see how you're actually spending your time.
Yeah.
And then I put a plus and a minus next to every single activity I did. Did this fuel me or did it deplete me? And then I took everything that depleted me and I put it separately, and I looked at it. I'm like, I don't need a loan officer assistant. I need a personal assistant that's going to help manage my life.
Yes.
And it was really revealing to me. And I was running a network group at the time. I put it out to my network group. Within 3 days, I hired a 15-hour-a-week personal/marketing assistant. And she was an MBA student who just wanted to work a few hours. It changed my life. I'm still friends with her today. And I've had one full-time for many, many years. But the reality is I really needed someone so that when I was at work, I could focus on work. When I was home, I could focus on my 3 kids. And it changed everything because that person could help me manage my network group. She was scheduling the lunches. She was sending all the emails. She was helping with my marketing campaign. She was helping, she put everything into my calendar and kept me on track for all my appointments and all my follow-up. So all these systems I created, she could help me keep on track for execution. And some of those systems, were my loan officer assistant that was implementing those for, when we look at creating the ultimate client experience for what happens when a lead comes in the door. And I usually start with my coaching clients there because very few of them have systems created for that client journey.
That's really good.
You have a system, whether you know it or not, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's memorable or not, there is a system. It just may not be.
And some systems just don't work. The reality is you should, like you talked about the things that gave you life, that gave you fulfillment, those that did not. You eliminated the things that did not or had someone else do them. And I think it's really important. One of the things you talk about is mapping out a referral partner follow-up plan. You talk a lot about the importance of having long-term referral partner relationships. If you explain the concept around it and then how you map out a plan to follow up on them.
Well, look, my passion, if I had to pick one of my superpowers, is, referral partner development and relational development, because I studied it. There's so many different components to being successful in mortgage, but it all boils down to one thing. It's relationships. Yeah. And so people don't study how to build deep and connected relationships, but I built systems around it because it's not natural for everybody. And so, you can elevate the curve. And my I became very almost obsessed on there's got to be a way to build a real relationship, let's just call it with a realtor, um, in a quick order of time. I didn't want it to take a year for them to see my value. So I had to come up with really strategic ways to intentionally show my value kind of right out of the gate. But one of the ways that I would do that is I'm going to back up a little bit and when I get the meeting, because it really starts there. So if let's just say I was taking you to lunch and you're a realtor, Dave, I would first of all sit in my car for a minute before I walked into the lunch. And I always did one thing that I don't think many people do. I would set my intention for the outcome of that meeting.
That's a really good point. Boy, that's good. That's so many people arrive right on time, right at the time. They're rolling up, maybe even a moment late, feeling guilty, burst out. Taking the time to be intentional and seeking and setting a goal for an outcome. That's really good. That's a great reminder. I don't care how good someone is out there. That's just a good reminder.
Well, it's night and day because now you're not just going in. I hear it all the time. I had the best meeting with this realtor. Like we completely gelled. It was amazing. That was 2 weeks ago. I haven't heard from them. I haven't followed up. They have no system.
Yeah, exactly.
So you go in and most of the time, my outcome that I wanted, and I became masterful at this, was my goal was to get a second meeting while I was at the first meeting because you can't secure the relationship typically in one meeting.
Right.
So I would go in with the intention of getting a second meeting so that before I left, because if I'm sitting across from you and we've just spent 90 minutes together having this really meaningful lunch, and I now pose the question, if I say something to you like, you know what, Dave, one of the things that I do with my top referring realtor partners that I love is I meet with them a couple times a year to discuss their, marketing campaigns. I think it would be really beneficial for us to schedule a follow-up meeting in a couple of weeks. I'd love to talk through your marketing system for 2026 and see if there's any suggestions I can give you that might help you expand your business this year. Would you be open to that?
Yeah, that's really good. I think this, I think there's one thing that's really needs to be inserted at this point. You talked earlier about data, the importance of knowing the data, and I think we have now so many business intelligence tools. Redder, Modex are two of them where you can go online and find out what realtors are actually doing loans, and then you would have to ask yourself, why am I meeting with someone that isn't producing business? You can help them get the best systems in place, but they're not generating business. So I really think it starts with targeting the top producers. You work with top loan officers. You target them and you help them become better. I think the same thing needs to be said for MLOs, mortgage loan originators, to be able to go in and target only those realtors that have a track record or are doing something. Now, if someone's new in the market and you believe they're going to be someone successful, then may make sense to work with them. But I think it's one of those things I really encourage people to do is check out who you're talking to. Do you even know if you're wasting your time or not?
100%. And today, early on in my career, we didn't have those tools, but the fact that they're so readily available today,
yes.
And even I will tell you, I remember a situation that was so helpful because one of my top realtor partners stopped calling. Like we weren't getting business from them and we were friends. And by this time we had MMI and I remember looking him up because I'm like, he's obviously dumped us and he's gone somewhere else. We must have done something along the way that he didn't like. And so I remember looking him up and I'm like, his loans were going all over the place. He wasn't directing it to one person. They were going to a myriad of different places. So I called him up and set a meeting with him. And I just said, I just really want to connect. I mean, we were doing so much business together. And he informed me that, people were coming in pre-qualified and he didn't want to rock the boat because business had gotten so tough. So he just didn't refer them to anybody. So I trained him on how to ask to give me 5 minutes of their time. And they could work with whatever lender they wanted. But I gave him a script. I physically wrote a script that I sent to Jeremy. And I said, will you just say, hey, you've got a trusted relationship with a local lender that you've worked with for years. They're welcome to work with anyone they want to work with. But would you just give Cindy a call and give her 5 minutes of your time? I think it'll be really helpful for you and you'll get a second opinion.
Yeah.
And so that's how we did it. And I won at least 50% of those leads.
Got it back. That's so important. That really gets into creating the ultimate client experience, and you do that through your processes and your systems that you have. Why is mapping a client journey, which is something you talk about, such a game changer?
Well, like I said, we all have a journey. It's just whether or not there's anything about it that's super memorable. And, one of my coaches, Stacia Weishauer, Stacia's a great producer in San Diego. And she worked for Microsoft for many years. One of the reasons I brought her on as a coach is because she's wired for systems and processes.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so she does a lot of training for our people. She's amazing. But
Okay.
she was at one of my retreats and we did an exercise that we did as a group on creating the ultimate client experience. So she took that and basically built it out on steroids and created her lead to legacy program. But basically it's the journey of from the moment a lead comes in the door to 1 year post close. So it's an entire journey mapped out. And she didn't have a big team at the time that we created this. She built it out with, I remember in the boxes for who was going to do all these tasks, it said TBD because she didn't know, to be determined. She didn't know who the person was. Now she has the team that implements all the tasks. But it can start very simple and very small because what happens is a lead comes in the door. Let's say they don't buy a house for 6 months. What's your system for following up with that lead to make sure you keep them in the court? There's so
Good
many
point.
leads that fall through the cracks because there's no follow-up plan.
Yeah.
And ideally, if you've got a CRM system that you can program to at least either remind you to make the call to that person. One of my clients, Michelle Town, she's incredible. I have coached her for 11 years. She was one of the nation's top producers last year. She funded $310 million last year.
Wow.
And she lives on a horse ranch in the middle of nowhere and has a completely virtual team. But her systems are unbelievable, David. They're dialed to the nines. Jungo is reminding her to call her client. She's got a completely dialed in system from the time a lead comes in to 1 year post close. And she's as good as her systems. And people stay with her because they have such a deep level of trust. And she stays top of mind consistently. But when you have a system, and some of my clients recently, we have a client, Slade Terry. He's a newer loan officer, 3 years into the business. And I love it. He was on one of our trainings about creating the ultimate client experience. And within a couple of weeks, he's an implementer and he's an executor. And Slade started, he said, I'm going to send like a pre-approval. I'm going to send a little gift to the client at pre-approval because he wanted to make it sticky on the very front end so they stayed in his court.
Right.
And I thought it was so
That's
great.
smart. We wait till at the end to send out a little gift, but that's a
Started doing it at the beginning, and it was a $25 investment, but he started doing it and started putting some time and energy into creating a more memorable experience. Within 30 days, he said his realtor partners were noticing, his clients, because he's 30-ish age range,
Yeah.
and his friends started buying homes. And so he said within 30 days, it started to increase his referrals because he built out a client experience. One of the things I did, and I always tell my clients, this is so basic and so simple, but some of the best ideas are, I have my clients tap into what their greatest strengths are. Like
Yeah.
organically, what are your greatest strengths? One
so
of my
important that you know those. Yes.
one of my greatest strengths was communication. But does that really set me apart from my competition? Maybe not so much. So I thought, how can I shine a brighter light on that strength? So I came up with the fact that we had a really good system for communicating with the buyer, the listing agent, and the selling agent. We were really good on keeping them abreast on the status of the loan. So I created the Cindy Ertman 10-point milestone communication plan. Now, we already did this, but I put a name to it. I built a flyer around it. And I created that. So when I was meeting with someone, I'd say, hey, one of the things that our realtor partners love about working with our team is our 10-point milestone communication plan, because we have a system around how we're communicating all the milestones of the loan. You will never need to call us for a loan update. And our clients love that about our team. But we delivered to that system. And that was a very simple thing. But so if you're going to create a system, you need to show up for it. To your point, you've got to execute to it.
Yes.
Now, I didn't execute mostly to that system. My LOA was responsible for those touch points. But we were known for that because people trusted us at such a high level because our communication was so great. So we had a
And communication and consistency. I mean, I think in communication, you talk about consistency, and I think that is such an important aspect to this.
100%.
And that comes back to the point of what you were saying is systems.
Well, and even the realtor follow-up campaign, to just come back to that for a minute, is, I had a system and I teach it now, but when you leave that meeting, before I would even, get back to the office, we have just basic follow-up things. Like we had, I think, 7 things that was part of the system. So if I met with a realtor, I might grab their card at the time. I would come back and I would just hand the card to my assistant because she knew the next steps. I had already texted them my contact information. Today, I would text them my digital card. I would give it to her. It goes directly into our database management system. It goes on my call list because I would call 10 realtors every Monday and 10 realtors every Wednesday. So they would go on to my follow-up call list that she would put into my calendar. There was a system for our follow-up. I wrote a handwritten thank you note to every single person that I met with. Today, I've got to admit, I would do a quick 1-minute video because it's so much quicker.
So much easier. And it's stickier. It's really stickier, yes. Although there's something about receiving a written note occasionally that goes like, they took the time to write this out, and that too has impact. So I think it's a combination. Really good.
100%. But I would, so I had 6 or 7 automatic follow-up things the second I got back from the meeting. And then again, I had already established the next meeting because in the first meeting. So now, and I already have a system. My connection to conversion marketing meeting I already had a system for meeting number 2. I didn't have to think about what I was going to do at that meeting. In that meeting, when I actually ask for the business in meeting number 2, and I have a strategy around how I ask that's very organic, right? So again, it saves so much time because I never have to think about what I'm going to say in the first meeting because I have it mapped out, and we teach that strategy. I know what I'm going to say in the second meeting. I know how I'm going to ask for the business, and I know how I'm going to follow up. To have that consistency helped me become one of the nation's top producers.
That taking the time to set up systems and thinking out the next step, and having a deep plan is really what you're talking about, is having a multiple step deep plan, if this, then that kind of things. And when you have that kind of intentionality and consistency, it's unbeatable. Give us some examples of results of people that you've worked with, Cindy, your coaching clients specifically,
100%.
when they have implemented these kind of systems, both from a production standpoint, but I'm also almost more interested in quality of life as much as the production.
Well, and it's, we always say we coach the whole person because you can't coach someone just on business if their health is completely out of line or their relationships are a disaster. Most recently, in fact, I'm proud of Shelly Canot today, who's at CMG. She's at their national sales rally today, and they've asked her to come on stage.
Oh, wonderful.
They're interviewing her because her business is elevated 98% in the last 6 months.
Wow.
And
that's one of your clients. That's amazing. 9?
And it's because she started to understand. She revamped her team. She got her team dialed in the right direction. You disc profile the team, you make sure you have the right people in the right seats so they're really capable of doing their job effectively. So she revamped the team. She dove in to get her systems and her processes so the team was really clear on their roles, which is really huge. Then she put together a social media strategy. Her video's amazing, started doing 1 video a day, very organic videos. She's very relatable. And she just watched her business just completely go through the roof. And she'll probably double it again because she now has built the foundation to be able to expand her capacity for success, which is huge. So super proud of her. One of my clients a few years ago, one of our biggest success stories ever. I never forget my first conversation with Tom Couture out of Lubbock, Texas. He'd been in the business for 42 years and had not been coached. And he said, Cindy, I can't break 38 million to save my life. Like he just, no matter what he did. And he said, I need some new tools in my tool chest. So he joined my Mortgage Mastermind Elite group. And the first year, because he didn't have a team, so we helped him. He ended up hiring 2 team members. We got them dialed in. And he went from 38 to 58 million, which was amazing. Then he joined a second year, which was 2019 / part of 2020. So 2020 definitely played. That market was hot, which was great. But Tom went from 58 million to 132 million and served 579 families that year.
Wow.
And it was just extraordinary growth. But the second year, he really tapped in to our connection to conversion strategy and started conducting first meetings with a real system around how to not only conduct the meeting to connect at a deeper level, but then implemented follow-up systems. And his business just exploded. He started being asked to come in to speak before real estate companies. So now instead of one-to-one, he's doing one-to-many. So it was exponential growth. And he's a dear friend. He's on my coaching staff today. And I'm just super, super proud of what he's created.
I love those stories. I mean, I think that when you hear these kind of stories, you realize the power of a system and what it can do for someone's life. And what it can do is because not only are they having great success, but how do you coach someone? You talk about coaching the whole person. How do you talk about work with someone who feels scattered, they're over busy, they're just stretched thin? What's the first system you would recommend someone? Free coaching here, moment to our listeners. What's the number one?
90% of mortgage loan originators, right? And I think the beauty of, and we have 3 different coaching programs. I can, share screen for a second, show you if you want to see them. But we really do have 3 different coaching levels for 3 different budgets, because we know not everybody can afford my high level mortgage mastermind elite program. We have private coaching. We have 2 levels of that. And then we have an all group program that's super, super affordable, because the reality is it's hard to do it on your own if you don't have the system. So if you can learn from somebody else and start to see that, and we have a really important concept that we teach to all of our people, that you are not allowed to have more than 3 cars out of the garage. So a lot of people chase shiny objects. So what we do is we want to get clear on what are the 3 things you can focus on that are going to move the needle. And you can only focus on those 3 things, period, for the next quarter. And so if it's building out maybe a client journey experience, you can do that in a matter of a few hours with some concentrated effort. Maybe it's
especially when you're using ChatGPT, it can be such a powerful tool to help you do that, Steve.
100%. So it's about making small shifts. We're not going from 1 to 10. We're just trying to create a basic system. Maybe it's a follow-up campaign, and that's where you need. So we start with the foundation of the house. Do you have a team member? Do you have any team? Some people have a team and they have the wrong team and they're not holding them accountable and they're not utilizing them. So we have a whole system around how to build and sustain a high impact team. So we train people as to how to hire the right people, how to disc profile them to make sure we know what disc profile for each position in mortgage. We've got sample ads for what you should place if you're looking to hire an LOA. Yeah. So we start at the beginning, but we start with, let's rebuild the house and build the foundation so that we can get you out of scattered and bring you back to, one of the simplest things that is the hardest to teach and execute is to spend, I have always been committed to an hour a day of kind of intentional prospecting, but having a plan. So knowing who you're going to talk to on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Brian Sewell is one of my coaches, and he was in my high-level mastermind group for 3 years. Brian has built out a system of who he's talking to. He talks to 100 people between Monday and Thursday every single week. And he knows statistically that if he makes those 100 calls and stays in touch with his realtors and referral partners and client base, he will close 18 loans a month on average. And it's proven time and time again because he has a system around his communication vehicle. So
yeah. There's so many good points. I think that because I would love to have you share a screen, but the point of it is the vast majority of our people listen on an audio basis. So here's the thing, listeners. We're going to put all the links to the things Cindy's talking about in our show notes. Listeners, you want to go back and go through these things. Cindy has coached some of the top performers, and you've already heard some of the stories here, and there's so many more. Cindy, we've run out of time. It's one of those things I just love listening to you. And so they always say end on a high note, and we're on a high note. So how can people reach you?
I would love it to go. You can just go to cindyertman.com is probably CINDYERTMAN. There is a schedule an appointment button at the top. And, we offer just a free coaching session. It's not a big sales pitch. We'll share our programs if you're interested, but we really do try to give value and try to tap into people's challenges and give them some valuable tools to walk away with, because I think you can probably tell I am passionate about this business.
Yes,
and
you are.
seeing people grow and giving them tools to go to the next level. It's just why I get up every morning. So would
Great
love
purpose
to
in
help
life.
anybody. I
Yeah.
would love to help anybody that needs some help and support this year.
I
And it's
love
going to be a great year.
Yeah, it's going to be an awesome year. And you know, Zig Ziglar said, you know, how to be successful, help someone else get, how for you to be successful is help someone get what they want and to be successful. And you doing that so successfully, Cindy. Congratulations on the many years of success and the profound difference you've had on so many lives. And the best part is you're young, you still have so much to contribute. From my perspective, I'm 75, so you're still young, very young, and you have so much to contribute. So thank you for being here.
Super excited to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, it's an honor. Can't wait to spend more time with you, Cindy. Blessings to you.
You too. Take care. Bless you.
Folks, I hope you enjoyed this interview with Cindy Ertman. A lot of great information. What systems do you have? Be sure to reach out to Cindy and have a conversation with her. This podcast was made possible by our sponsors, Title Ease, Byte Software, First Close, Angel AI, True, Candid, Mortgage Bankers Association of America, Lenders One, Modex, Redder, Mortgage Advisory Tools, and Fuel Inc. Folks, thank you so much for listening. Please like and subscribe and share it with others. Appreciate you. Have a great rest of your week. Hope to see you back here on our next interview.
You've been listening to Lickin' on Lending. Our passion is to bring you the latest insights, trends, and updates from the world of mortgages. So on this show, if you're a seasoned industry veteran or just getting started, it's your go-to source for all things mortgage. We hope you've enjoyed the show. We'll be back soon. Take care, and we'll see you next time on Lickin' on Lending.